Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Mark, a trainer here at WEX Field Service Management, and today we are covering QuickBooks Sync Training. This webinar will cover what is QuickBooks Sync in general, what's the difference between one-way sync items and two-way sync items. We'll go over QuickBooks Online versus QuickBooks Desktop, how to use the QuickBooks Sync tool for our desktop users, and then customer invoice and payment sync, as well as back office settings, where to find your sync training, and some tips and best practices for syncing. We will end with our live Q&A that we do in every session where you can ask questions and get those answered live on stream. Without further ado, let's get into our first topic, which is what is QuickBooks Sync? Most likely, if you are here, you came from using QuickBooks, and now you will start using WEX FSM, and QuickBooks does integrate with WEX FSM. This will eliminate the need for double entry. You won't need to be entering into both systems. You'll enter things like customers, invoices, and payments into WEX FSM, and those will sync down to your QuickBooks. There are two versions of QuickBooks, QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop, and there are two kinds of items. One-way sync items, which only sync one way, and two-way sync items, which will allow you to sync from both softwares equally. So, what is the biggest difference between one-way and two-way sync items? One-way sync items, you must enter into WEX FSM first. That is going to be customers, invoices, and payments. So if you are still in onboarding, this is a little different. Before you make the switch to using WEX FSM as your main software, if you're still in onboarding, you would still be doing your data loads and entering into your previous software. So if you were using QuickBooks as your main software, you're going to continue entering those items, your customers' invoices and payments, into QuickBooks until you make the switch. Once you make the switch to start using WEX FSM, from that moment forward, you are going to enter your customers' invoices and payments into WEX FSM first, and that will sync down to your QuickBooks. After you make the switch, if you enter a customer into QuickBooks, it will not sync up to WEX FSM. And then you'll need to manually enter that into WEX FSM. Uh, well, really, don't enter into QuickBooks. So if you do, and you enter it into XFSM after, you're going to get a duplicate because then that will sync down and create another customer. So just that's the biggest rule. I always like to drive this home. Once you make the switch, your customers, your invoices, and your payments, you'll enter into WEX FSM first, and that will sync down to your QuickBooks. Those are one-way sync items. Two-way sync items are your chart of accounts, your taxes, your QuickBooks item list, more of those back office settings. And those are items that will sync both ways. So you could enter those or update those in QuickBooks, and that will sync up to WEX FSM and vice versa. So, what are one-way sync items and two-way sync items? You will actually a little later, we'll take a look at what those are in your system. Just know one-way sync, those are your customers, invoices, and payments. Two-way sync, back office settings like your chart of accounts, taxes, and QuickBooks item list. All right, so let's talk about syncing to QuickBooks Desktop. There are two versions. There's QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online. For QuickBooks Desktop users, it does require a sync tool application. The sync tool is what allows WEX FSM and QuickBooks Desktop to communicate with each other. and it must be installed onto your computer before you make the switch. This ensures you'll be able to sync right when you start using WEX FSM. And the sync tool can be installed very easily. You just go to your QuickBooks Sync Training in the Help Center and click on, set up your sync training. A member from our customer care team will install the sync tool for you and show you how to use it. And we'll look at that together as well a little later. Now, the sync tool, once you go, here's just a little example of this. If you go to the Help Center and go to Tasks, which is the last tab here, you'll see QuickBooks Sync Training. And this is the main training that you will use regardless of which option you have, QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop. But if you're QuickBooks Desktop, the first thing it will have you do is install the sync tool. And you will have a link right here. It says, please click this link to schedule your install meeting. That is where you will schedule. So you'll log in to WEX FSM. In the bottom right, there's a little circle. It looks like a smiley face guy. Click on that and go to tasks. Then click install sync tool and this link. That's how you will schedule your sync tool install. And how to prepare if you have someone, you are going to do a Zoom meeting with a WEX FSM representative. Before you show up to that meeting, just make sure you have your admin username and password and WEX FSM login. You'll want to use the main computer that has your main QuickBooks Desktop file on it. And if you're using a server, just let the representative know so they know where to install the tool. Once you have the sync tool installed, again, this is for QuickBooks Desktop users, you will first log in to WEX FSM, then you will log into QuickBooks. That will allow the tool to connect the two. And then you have the option of choosing an auto sync every 15, 30, or 60 minutes, or once per day. All right, so that was QuickBooks Desktop instructions. Now going to QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Online is a little more simple. There is no sync tool you have to worry about. You don't have to do a meeting with a customer service rep. You're just ready to start syncing. QuickBooks Online syncs everything to the cloud. And when you first signed up, you would have given us your credentials for that, and we would have connected your account. So most likely, if you're here, your QuickBooks Online account has already been connected. And then some details about QuickBooks Online Sync. There's no manual sync option. It will be an auto sync every 10 minutes, 24 hours a day. So as you're entering customers' invoices and payments, every 10 minutes, those will then sync down to your QuickBooks. Now, just as a nuanced detail of this, there is a soft cap of 31 items syncing per 10 minutes. And an item could be a customer, line items on an invoice, a payment, and those count towards that 31 count. So 31 pieces of data every 10 minutes. Usually you're going to stay under that if you get super busy and you add, if you're adding 31, if you're adding 31 customers every 10 minutes, then that is a lot of customers. So usually it's going to be fine. You're gonna be everything will sync within that 10 minutes. However, let's say that you do have a couple invoices that have many, many items on them, and it reaches over the 31 item per 10-minute limit, it'll just go in the next batch of 10 minutes. So if you make, let's say, a lot of updates and changes, and then you go and look in your QuickBooks and you don't see that those have updated yet, I would just wait a little longer because it will batch those and it will sync them If it doesn't make it in the first set of 10 minutes, it'll go in the next one, etc. So just a nuance of that. Most likely you won't even remember or have to think about that because it's just going to sync automatically every 10 minutes. Biggest difference between QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Desktop requires the sync tool and it allows a manual sync with that sync tool. QuickBooks Online, there's no sync tool and no manual sync option. However, it will auto sync every 10 minutes, so faster than the desktop version. And now we want to go into WEX FSM and show you a visual of these sync items. So we're going to check out some one-way sync items, customers, invoices, and payments, and where you can check the sync statuses of those. And then we will also look at our two-way sync items, classes, income accounts, tax groups, payment terms, and the QuickBooks item list. So let's go ahead and now switch over to WEX FSM. And what we're going to first look at is one-way sync items. So customers, invoices, and payments. First, let's look at customers. So once you're logged in to WEX FSM, in the main navigation in the top left, there is a tab called Customers. Click on that, and that will bring you to your customer list. This is a big list of all your customers in your system. When you click the red plus button here and enter in your customer information, that will then save to your customer list. And once you, as long as the sync is turned on and connected to QuickBooks, once you add a customer, they will then sync down to your QuickBooks and create a QuickBooks customer. That way you have a one-to-one comparison in both. If you want to see the sync status of a customer, that is right here, auto sync status. So this column with all the green buttons is what will show you whether they are ready to sync. Is there an error preventing it from syncing? Is it actively in the process of syncing? And has it been synced and it's officially in your QuickBooks? You can search and isolate by status here as well. Another thing you can do with customers is delete them or merge them. If you want to delete a customer, you can click on that customer profile and click delete. And once that deletes out of WEX FSM, that will sync and that will also delete them from QuickBooks. If you want to merge accounts, let's say that we have two accounts that we want to merge into one account, click both accounts you want to merge and then merge. This part is important. The order of operations is that you must merge in QuickBooks first. So if you know you're going to merge, and here's why. You're going to have two accounts in WEX FSM and two accounts in QuickBooks. If you merge in WEX FSM, that's going to immediately sync down to your QuickBooks. And your QuickBooks may still have two accounts rather than one account, and it won't be a one-to-one comparison. So instead, you'll want to perform the merge in QuickBooks first. In QuickBooks, merge the two accounts, make sure you select the same master account, and now the merge is done in QuickBooks. Then come into WEX FSM, select both accounts, make sure you select the same master account. That way it is a one-to-one sync. And the rest is easy. Once you merge that here, that will sync down and it'll see the same master and link those two in the sync. So that is merging customers. Next, let's go to the invoice list. So we're going to go to Jobs, Invoice List. This is a big list of all your invoices in your system. And this also has a place to check on the sync statuses. Right here where it says auto sync, this entire column will let you know whether they are ready to sync, not ready to sync, off, there's some type of error, it's actively syncing, or it is finished and it is officially synced and in your QuickBooks. And this is a great place to troubleshoot syncing as well. If you notice, this says not ready and the details are in red. That means that this has not synced and it's missing some information. It needs some help. We're going to click on details and it tells you exactly what it wants. So this says you must select an account for all invoice line items for QuickBooks Sync. So this wants an income account. It doesn't know where to send this revenue. So we're going to look. This is the two system residential comfort club. So that is most likely going to be my job income and then save. And we have officially fixed that issue here. Okay. So invoice list, great place to check on your sync statuses and do any troubleshooting if you need to from here. Next, let's go to the payment list. So we're going to go to Jobs, Payment List. And this will be a big list of all of your payments in your system. So whenever you take a payment, that will sync down to your QuickBooks. And you'll be able to check the sync statuses just like the other pages right here. And if you click the red arrow on each payment, it'll give you the details. And if I click the three dots here, I can edit the payment, change the customer, refund the payment, or delete the payment. Any edits or updates you make to the payments here will sync down to your QuickBooks. Now, everything we've gone over in the system so far has been a one-way sync item. So after you make the switch and you're officially linked up and your sync is going, do not enter customers' invoices and payments into QuickBooks. You will enter those items into WEX FSM first, and then they will sync down and you'll have them in your QuickBooks. Next, we will go over two-way sync items, which is different. These items allow you to sync in both places, so it'll sync up from QuickBooks. So let's go to Settings, Accounting and Taxes. Everything on this page is a two-way sync item. So that includes classes, your chart of accounts, your income accounts, liability accounts, inventory part accounts, and tax settings. If I want to update a tax group and I do that in QuickBooks, that will then sync up to WEX FSM. If I want to, update my classes or income accounts, change the names, I can edit that here or in QuickBooks, and they will both sync in both directions. So these are some two-way sync items. Another two-way sync item are your payment terms. So we're going to go to Settings, Jobs, Payment Terms. And payment terms are really just the amount of time that your customer has to pay their invoices. And these are custom. Maybe these have already synced and these are just a one-to-one comparison of what's in your QuickBooks. If you add new payment terms here, that will sync down to your QuickBooks. If you add new payment terms in QuickBooks, those will sync up and you'll see them in the list here. So that's payment terms. And then the final sync, two-way sync item we're going to show is the QuickBooks item list. Now, the QuickBooks item list is only accessible in WEX FSM through the invoice or proposals. So if I'm on a job form and I click add item, you can see right here, this pulls up all of our price books. And from your QuickBooks item list, this is where you'll see your item list. It's a one-to-one comparison. So whatever you have in your QuickBooks item list in QuickBooks is what you will see in this list here. And you can just search, type in a key term, anything that has that name in it, you'll be able to select and add. And this is a two-way sync item. So if you want to update your QuickBooks item list, do that in QuickBooks, and that will sync up to WEX FSM. All right. Now, before we go to our Q&A, let's look at where you can find some training, additional training on sync if you need. So go to the Help Center, the little smiley face guy, and then click on Help in the center here. And you can just type the word QuickBooks. All of our knowledge articles will show up here. If you want the official QuickBooks Sync training that is assigned to your account in onboarding, click on Tasks, and it's right here at the top, QuickBooks Sync training. And this will be the training for the version that you have. So if you're QuickBooks Desktop, this will be a QuickBooks Desktop training. If you're QuickBooks Online, it'll be QuickBooks Online training. And then, of course, if you do have any questions at all, you can contact support and they'll be able to answer your questions. Go to video courses and webinars. And this is where you can sign up for other sessions. And if you scroll to the bottom, QuickBooks Sync Training, the recording for this session is right here in case you want to watch this back and take notes. All right, that is all the information we have for today's presentation. I hope you learned something. We're going to go to our Q&A now, but before we do, I just want to say thank you so much for joining. My name is Mark with WEX Field Service Management, and this has been QuickBooks Sync Training.